You see a link?
It's live, no? You're live.
Hi. I'm going to give it a few more minutes. Hopefully we'll get a few more people logging on. So I'll start reading. Today I will be sharing with you a few excerpts from my Angel Crush series, which is an awesome series that is based in Atlanta. It consists of these 3 books right here. So, how about we start with Angel Crush? Just to give you a little background of the series. They are books about a fallen angel who comes down to the city of Atlanta and wreaks havoc on a family. The main character in the second and the third book is Khalid. He is the son of Sadie and that angel. So what we'll do, I will go ahead and read an excerpt from Angel Crush first, and then from Son of the Rock, and from Arc Fiend. I hope that you will enjoy it, and I hope that it will make you more curious about my books. Hey Ashley, good to see you. Let me get up and get some natural light, some more light in here. I guess I should have done that before I started filming. Sadie Covington was a naturally beautiful woman. Her paper sack brown skin was smooth and even toned with nary a freckle, stretch mark, or mole. Thick back curls crowned her head like an ebony halo. Milk chocolate eyes stared out from a kind and cherubic face. She was short in stature, with a perfect hourglass figure, ample breasts, and tiny waist and round hips. A stunning beauty she was, but very approachable. She had the type of personality that made everyone around her a bit feel comfortable. Intimidating she was not. Pretty but a bit clumsy, sexy but a bit silly. The type that looked stunning in a $1 thrift store dress and $400 shoes. She ate Fruit Loops from a crystal bowl and wore evening gowns with Minnie Mouse thongs. Her toes spread when she laughed, open-mouthed, teary-eyed, loud, and full of sincerity. Nothing was too fine. She knew when to be a lady and when to raise sand. She was honest but not hurtful, funny but not vulgar, sweet but not stupid. Sadie was the kind of woman that was easy to talk to and easy to please, and easier to fall in love with. Every Sunday morning, she sat on a small iron stool, leaning on her kitchen counter, eating fruit salad and doing a new crossword puzzle. And that Sunday morning, she was doing the same. The sound of lead touching paper filled the room. The smell of fragrant lilacs and vanilla rose from burning candles as she scribbled old vocabulary words on the wrinkled newspaper. The phone rang. She dropped her pencil on the floor, grabbed it with her toes, and passed it to her hand, and placed it upon the counter. "Hello?" She spoke into the mouthpiece as she rolled her eyes upward. She hated her Sunday morning peace to be disturbed, but she was glad to have to get up from the stool. Her legs were asleep. She tried shaking off the pins and needle feelings and massaged her calves with her free hand. "Hello?" she said again, this time with an obvious level of annoyance in her voice. "Hey, baby, what are you up to?" A man's voice echoed through the receiver. His voice was baritone, and penetrating with a slight southern drawl, the kind of voice that echoed with strength and sent your soul back to times of muscled farm hands, aching Hebrew backs breaking under Egyptian whips, Nubian princes wearing crowns of gold, clay inhaling and becoming a living soul. It was raspy, ancient, and immortal, reeking with virility. "Relaxing," she answered. She sat back on the stool and picked up her pencil once more. She held the phone with her shoulder and took a sip of white grape peach juice. "Mr. Tucker, is there anything in particular that you need?" A new word was scribbled onto the puzzle. "I needed to hear your voice," he replied in a tone that indicated that he was smiling. She smiled and put down the pencil. "You have my attention," she cooed. "Now that you hear my voice, is there anything else you need from me?" Sadie took a bite of fruit and attempted to chew it as quietly as possible. She plunged her fork into the bowl for the last chunk, but the fruit missed her mouth, leaving a sticky juice trail down her chin. Abandoning the fork, Sadie picked up the fruit off the counter with her teeth and savored its tangy, sweet taste. "No, your voice is sufficient. To hear it makes me realize how lucky I am to have you as a fiancé. Relax yourself. I'll call you back when you finish your puzzle. I know how important your quiet time is to you," said James. "Aren't you the sweetest thing in the great state of Georgia?" she asked rhetorically in her best Southern Belle accent, grinning as she wiped her chin with her forearm. "Baby, I'm the sweetest thing in the world," James laughed. "You know how this chocolate tastes in the cream soup." "Oh, shut up. You so nasty." I was wondering when the modesty would fade. She joined in with the laughter. "I'll have to talk to you later. I do wish to finish my puzzle and then run some errands. Maybe you can come over for dinner if you're not busy. My parents are coming in from their retirement home in Florida, and I would like you to finally meet them. They're very curious about the man who has asked for their daughter to marry." "Around what time?" There was a bit of nervousness in his voice. The thought of meeting her parents made him uncomfortable. He was not the kind of guy who cared about what others' approval, but Sadie's parents were important to her. James prayed that they would like him. After all, he felt he was a pretty cool guy. His parents loved her. His mother talked about Sadie nonstop. She was the daughter his mother never had. James' parents thought Sadie was perfect for him and liked her more than any woman he had dated. James hoped Sadie's parents would feel the same way about him. "Maybe 7, Sadie answered, twirling her short hair with her fingers. Tiny curls hugged her fingers like onyx rings. "They can't wait to meet you. I've told them so much about you. I'll have all the ones I love together. Dinner will be perfect." "I don't know about that. Are you cooking or are we going out?" "Boy, you need to stop. You know I can cook," Sadie giggled. "You do I guess," James joked. "I haven't had to go to the emergency room yet." "Whatever. I'll cook. And I really don't feel like dressing up," she said, dismissing his remark. Sadie knew James loved her food. He ate at her table like a runaway slave, finally getting a meal after running barefoot through 6 states. A matter of fact, sometimes she felt he loved her food more than he loved her. So can I throw on some jeans and a tee?" "Sure, why not? You look amazing in simple jeans and a tee." A naughty grin curled her lips. An image of James in a fitted white t-shirt filled her thoughts. She could see his rippled arms, broad shoulders, and reminisce on the way his abdominal muscles formed a perfect 8-pack and how his legs were so large and well made. His skin was so black that it looked purple, and it was so smooth that it felt unnatural. The room seemed to get a bit hotter. She took a sip of her juice and slightly crossed her legs to curb the tickle pain in her loins. "Thank you, baby. I'll be there. Is there anything else you want from me? You want me to bring?" "Dessert. Anything but cake. I went to 2 weddings and 3 baby showers last month, and I ate so much cake that I'm surprised I'm not sweating icing," Sadie complained. "I think I'll have a couple slices in my refrigerator." James laughed. "I'll see what I can do." "I appreciate that, baby. I really can't wait to see you tonight. You're gonna really love my dad. He's ultra charming. He loves to talk. He'll trip you out with his stories. And you'll absolutely fall in love with my mom when you get to know her. She can seem a little distant at first, but she comes around fairly quickly. They're truly great people. But I'm a bit biased," she laughed. "I'm sure," James' voice cracked. He was full of nerves. "You don't sound sure." Everything will be great. You'll see, Sadie assured him. Well, my love, let me get back to my me time. Okay, sweet stuff. I'll talk to you later. Love you, cooed Sadie. Love you more. Goodbye. Bye, James responded as he hung up the phone. Sadie placed the receiver back on the hook and sat back down. The back of her thighs stuck to the soft leather of the stool. Every move sounded like flatulence. Her tiny shorts provided no buffer. She adjusted her legs and picked up her pencil once more. After 15 minutes, she finished the puzzles and folded the paper. She yawned loud and stretched her entire body until she formed a gigantic X. With a lazy push, she slid from the stool, making her shorts right above her cheeks. She pulled them down and inserted her index finger in her ear and wiggled it as fast as she could, secretly creating an ear orgasm. The silence of her condominium seemed to squeal in her ears. She walked into the kitchen. The cold floor was like ice to her bare feet. She rose upon her toes. Sadie hit the power button on the radio and sat on the counter. Nothing. She checked the plug. It was plugged in. I just bought this radio. I can't believe it's not working, she mumbled. Sadie unplugged it, and the music came on. She flipped the unit upside down, and there were no batteries. Instantly, the volume blared. She dropped the radio to the floor, barely missing her foot. She bent down to pick it up. The entire room dropped at least 20 degrees in temperature. She could feel her skin like it was a foreign object. Her heart thumped. She bolted up. Her feet were glued to the floor as her eyes searched every corner of the room. A flipping, fluttering sound filled the room. Sadie pressed her palms against her ears. A single tear ran down her face. Chill bumps cascaded down every inch of her body. A strong breeze wrapped around her like a blanket of ice. Her t-shirt waved like a hand with no bones. The gust of wind became so strong she could hardly keep her footing. She turned her eyes to the window. It was closed. Everything outside seemed undisturbed. Even the leaves on the trees stood suspended in motionlessness. What's happening? Who's here? She screamed. I'll call the police. She opened a drawer and pulled out an electric mixer, looked at it helplessly, then dropped it back into the drawer. I have a gun, she lied. Show yourself, Sadie screamed. The wind seemed to blow her words back into her mouth. The kitchen light flickered. The sound grew louder. She wrapped her arms around her head. A gust of wind blew her to the floor. Sadie fell hard on her behind. Oh, God, what's going on? She cried. Looking around the room, her hands vigorously massaging her tailbone, she saw movement. Sweat formed on her brow. Sadie reverberated off the floor and pulled a butcher's knife out of the knife rack. She held the knife above her head, ready to strike anyone or anything that came near her. A dark shadow fell upon her face. Her skin turned as pale as the moon. The knife hit the floor, its wooden handle making an echoing thud. Sadie's eyes stretched in horror and disbelief. Her mouth opened and her lips tore back, exposing all teeth and gums. A scream fell silent upon her lips as two large hands grabbed hold of her shoulders and lifted her unconscious body into the sky. Now that was an excerpt from Angel Crush. Now in this series, the second book is Son of the Rock. This is 8 years after Angel Crush, so I don't want to give you too much information. You'll figure it out by me reading chapter 25 of Son of the Rock. Khalid is Sadie's son, who you've just got introduced to in Angel Crush. So we will begin. Khalid stood staring at the heavens with tears streaming down his flushed cheeks. Heavy breaths ripped through his nostrils as he growled. The grass beneath his feet dried and turned brown with each passing of his feet. He stumped in rage, pacing back and forth. Father! Khalid screamed. You lied to me! A great wind knocked Khalid off his feet. A blinding lightning bolt struck inches from him, generating clouds of dirt and debris. Khalid squealed as he stumbled away from the choking dirt cloud. His little hands grabbing the grass as if the very earth would turn sideways and drop him off. Respect! A voice echoed through the air before Tyrio's feet appeared out of nothingness and hit the ground in front of Khalid. Then the angel appeared in all his glory, causing the boy to fall prostrate, covering his face with quaking arms. "Father!" Khalid wailed. Dirt clung to his moist lips as he spoke with his head touching the ground. The dead grass and soil made him cough. Snot and tears watered the ground. "You promised to give her to me. Now she's chosen someone else." Turiel's brilliance dimmed and his countenance became easier to behold. His wings folded behind him, granting him the appearance of a mortal. "Get up," Turiel commanded. Khalid scrambled to his feet. Dirt and grass speckled his clothes. He wiped his face, then with the back of his arm, leaving a shiny streak of tears, mucus, and saliva down his forearm. "Come to me," Turiel bellowed, his eyes golden slits. Khalid shuffled over to him on shaking legs. He looked up into his father's face. The angel pulled the boy close to him and folded Khalid into his arms. A feeling of euphoria filled the child as he was lifted into the air. Warmth and tingling danced across every inch of Khalid's skin. The beating of his heart lingered between life and death. "My son, I have no power over the object of your affection. I cannot control a soul. I can only influence. If she does not choose you, I can do nothing to change that," Turiel whispered whispered to Khalid without using words. Khalid's head spun as the wind encircled him. "But I want her," Khalid slurred, his eyes rolled back into his head. "Then you shall have her," Turiel echoed in Khalid's mind. "You should have her, or she shall have no one." "Father, don't leave me," Khalid begged. "You're the only one who understands. Remain with me." "I would never leave you nor forsake you," Turiel implanted in Khalid's thoughts. Khalid's eyes closed and his consciousness was lost. When he came to, he was lying in his backyard beneath a pecan tree. Miss Covington sat upon the small cushioned bench in front of her bedroom window and looked out of the window into the backyard. The sky was cloudless as trees danced in the sunlight. She allowed her eyes to admire her garden, the small pond, her fruitful pecan tree. When her eyes moved from the top of the tree to the bottom, Miss Covington clasped her chest and gasped in horror. It was in the middle of the day and her grandson was lying under the tree like a corpse. Miss Covington opened the window and screamed his name. There was no answer. She quickly slipped her foot into a pair of clogs and flew down the stairs and out of the doors into the backyard faster than she thought her aged body could possibly move. "Khalid!" she called as she shook the unresponsive child. "Khalid!" she yelled. "Wake up, baby!" She fell upon her knees and shook him frantically. "Please wake up!" Khalid opened his eyes and sat up. "What happened?" Miss Covington asked, falling back on her behind. And what are you doing home?" Her eyes dimmed with confusion. I don't know," Khalid answered, still in a stupor. "What do you mean you don't know? I walked you to the school bus myself. How did you get home?" Miss Covington barked. "Tell me what's going on here." "I don't know, Grandma," Khalid answered truthfully. Khalid looked up and then past his grandmother. Miss Covington spun around to see what was behind her. Fear seized her as her eyes focused upon Turiel, the same Turiel that killed Dr. Patina before her eyes years ago, the same angel that assaulted her daughter and fathered her grandson. Miss Covington grabbed her grandson and crawled backwards, the roots of the tree hurting her palms, her emerald green pantsuit getting soiled as she tried to scurry to her feet. "What do you want?" she cried, pulling Turiel as close to her as possible. "You!" Turiel rejoined. "Me?" Miss Covington asked. She wrapped her arms around Khalid, sure that death was coming. "Yes, you," Turiel said to Miss Covington as he tossed the boy to the side, leaving her alone with terror. Khalid fell backwards and watched in dismay as Turiel transformed into a cloud of light and surrounded Miss Covington. The cloud absorbed into her very pores as she screamed and convulsed on the ground, her legs kicking and arms flailing. Foam dripped from her mouth and her eyes rolled back into her head. Her black skin glistened with perspiration. In seconds, the cloud was gone and Miss Covington keeled over. Khalid scurried over to Mrs. Covington and shook her limp body. He squealed, "Grandma, are you okay?" Tears poured down his face. "Grandma," he whined. Khalid checked her pulse. He couldn't find it. Her chest did not rise or fall. Her body lay completely still. Khalid let go of his grandmother and allowed her body to rest upon the ground. He screamed into the empty air, "Father, where are you? What did you do to my grandma?" Khalid wailed. Miss Covington inhaled and started to cough. She sat up, then slowly got to her feet. She looked deep into Khalid's eyes. Khalid stepped backwards, his head turned sideways as he met her gaze. A look of strange recognition covered Khalid's face. "Father?" Khalid asked, his voice trembling. "It is I," Turiel answered through Miss Khalid's mouth with her voice. "What do you do with my grandma?" Khalid asked. More tears began to form in his eyes. Confusion filled his mind. He saw his grandmother before him, but he knew in his heart that it was not her. Her body didn't move the same. It moved in a delayed motion with a slight tick. Her facial expressions were not her own. "She's safe inside. I'm just using her for a while," Turiel answered. "I would do her no harm." Miss Covington popped and rolled her neck, stretched her arms and legs until her movements were smooth and near normal. "But why?" Khalid cried, taken aback by the angel adjusting himself in Miss Covington's body. "So I can be with you," Turiel answered, reaching for Khalid's hand. Khalid looked into her eyes and accepted her hand, and the two of them walked into the house. That is an excerpt from Son of the Rock, Part 2 of the Angel Crush series. And the last excerpt I will read is from Art Theme. And again, this is 8 years later. This time, Khalid Tucker is a college student. He has become comfortable in his powers. And I will read to you an excerpt from chapter 37. So if you bear with me, I'm going to take a breath. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. So I am reading what you are saying. Khalid flashed a tall, rough-looking security guard a fake ID. The big man twisted his lips to the side and huffed. It was obvious that Khalid was not 30 years old. Khalid grudgingly handed the guard a $100 bill, the very last of his money for the semester, and the big man moved to the side and allowed Khalid to enter. Smoke filled the bar and clouds of smelly gray. Loud music pulsated from old speakers that thumped from the corners of the room. On a round stage in the middle of the room, two topless women slid down metal poles. They looked like a little older than Khalid imagined they would be. They were kind of pretty, he guessed, but he estimated their ages to be in their early 50s, maybe their late 40s. He figured that maybe this was a place where strippers went to die. Khalid made his way to an empty table near the back of the room. A woman wearing a leotard with fishnet stockings, a metallic orange wig, and earrings with missing stones asked him if he wanted a drink. He shook his head, declining the offer. She rolled her big hazel eyes and walked away. Khalid scanned the room until they landed on a middle-aged Hispanic man with a palm full of cash throwing money at the dancing women on the stage. The man had a strong build, a pleasant face, and was average height. There was nothing eye-catching about him, positive or negatively. Khalid watched as the man drank glass after glass of alcohol. After his money ran out, he stumbled out of the back door of the strip club. Khalid followed behind him. "Excuse me," Khalid asked the drunken man. The staggering man turned around and looked at Khalid. "What?" the man slurred. He stumbled as if he was doing the mumbo to music only he could hear. "What time is it?" Khalid asked, the shadow of the building hiding half his face. "Do I look like Father Time to you?" the drunken man belched. "Get away from me, you little twerp." "I think you're too drunk to drive, sir," Khalid said. "Mind your business," the drunkard yelled. He pulled his keys out of his pocket and tried to unlock his door to no avail. He was too drunk to push the button of the key fob or put the key in the keyhole. "Let me help you," Khalid said as he walked over to the man. The man swung his arm to ward off Khalid, but Khalid dodged it. He stepped back and looked at the man, who seemed to sober up enough to notice Khalid's blacked out eyes staring back at him. The man grabbed his chest and stumbled backwards as the pain mounted in his chest, but it left as quickly as it came. Khalid changed his mind. Willing the man to die was too easy. He wanted to feel the warmth from the man's chill, slowly into lifelessness. But he snatched the keys out of the drunken man's hand and stabbed him in the neck He stabbed him in the neck with them until a thick fountain of blood rushed from his neck, coating Khalid's hand like a liquid glove. Khalid stabbed and stabbed the man until his arm stopped flailing. He hit the ground, a lump of mutilated flesh. Khalid hoisted the man up over his shoulder and took him into his car. After wrapping the man's neck with rags he found in the trunk, Khalid put the man into the car and drove back to campus. He parked the car and carried it up the back stairs to his dorm room, unable to pull his key from his pocket because he was holding the man. Khalid kicked the door lightly with his foot, hoping that no one would hear him in the hallway in the middle of the night. Bilal opened the door and Khalid pushed through quickly, dropping the man to the floor. Khalid went into the bathroom to gather cleaning supplies and put on gloves, then rushed back into the hallway, down the stairs to ensure no blood was left behind. He went to the car and cleaned his fingerprints off everything. He drove the car across town, threw the supplies in the backpack, and caught the bus back to college. 2 hours later, Khalid walked into the dorm room. Bilal sat on the corner of the bed reading as usual. Khalid was surprised to see that he was wearing the same decaying body he had been wearing since Khalid had known him. The dead man was still lying in the middle of the floor. "What's going on?" Khalid asked, angry that the dead man had not been possessed by Bilal. "What do you mean?" Bilal asked, not looking up from his book. "I brought you a healthy body. Why aren't you wearing it?" Khalid asked, breathing hard from the night's labor. He removed his bloody shirt, put it in a plastic bag, and went to the refrigerator. He emptied old food, sauces, and liquids into the bag onto the soiled shirt and tossed it all into the trash. "I don't want them," Bilal replied flippantly. "What's wrong with him?" Khalid roared. Anger raged in him so great that his blackening eyes extended to his forehead and cheekbones as if he was wearing a shadowy mask. "Keep your voice down. It's not wise to bring attention to our room," Bilal said as he flipped a page. Tyrio stared from the corner of the room, his eyes indignant. A wrinkle ran across his forehead as his golden brows furrowed. "You've upset your daddy," Bilal laughed, not looking up. "I can feel his energy shift." Khalid looked at the angel, noticing the change in his face. "What's wrong with this guy?" A distressed Khalid asked, sounding like a 16-year-old that he was. "Too old," Bilal answered. "Too old, and his liver is probably shot. Not to mention the hack job you did on his neck. Was I supposed to walk around like a victim of a shark attack?" Khalid dropped down on his bed and buried his face into his hands. He wanted to cry, but he could not. He took a deep breath and looked up. "Please don't make me drag this body back out of this room," Khalid said. Bilal put the book down, his shadow still sitting on the bed, and went to his desk to open the ancient box. Bilal said something in a foreign language, and the lid flew open. Thousands upon thousands of light beams swarmed around the dead body and consumed it in a matter of seconds. Bilal spoke again, and the creature returned to the box. Nothing was left of the dead man but a skeleton wearing clothes. "Dispose of the remains. Next time, I won't be so benevolent if you bring me a subpar body," Bilal said as he picked up his book and began to read again. Khalid gathered the bones and clothes in his backpack and exited the room. Fear and frustration filled him. There was no pleasing that demon. Well, I hope that you enjoyed those excerpts from my Angel Crush trilogy. The first, Angel Crush, Son of the Rock, and Arc Fiend. They are available on violetmeyer.com and also on Amazon, wherever books are sold. And I really, really appreciate you guys sitting in and listening. Thank you, Stephen. I'm glad you liked it. I have a few minutes to talk if you have anything to say or any questions to ask. And good afternoon to you, Devon. And hi, Zaria and Ashley. It's always good to see you guys. But thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Please forgive my word stumbles. It's funny, I write books and I hardly ever read them after I'm done. I say one day I'm going to sit down and actually read my whole library. But I hope you have a wonderful day. You stay safe and healthy. And again, go to violetmeyer.com and check out all of my works. And I hope that you had a very good time. Thank you, Randall. Enjoy.